Welcome back to the Abide Project Synod 20, now 24 update. Cedric, I'm Reverend Tyler Wagenmaker.
And I am the Reverend Cedric Parsels.
And Cedric, it is May.
It is May.
It's not June.
This is not typical for Synod.
This is not because Synod meets in June.
We're not at Calvin.
We are not, because it's meeting at Calvin University. Obviously, we are
yeah.
not at Calvin University.
No.
And it is May. So
it is May.
What is going on here, Cedric?
Well, we are actually right in front of Lee Street Christian Reformed Church, which is the convening church for this Synod. And they also will have, at least their pastors will be leading the worship service on the Sunday of Synod. So they are the convening church, but they met last night.
Synod did. Synod did.
As a
did
whole.
They meet here?
No, they did not.
They did not meet here.
No.
They didn't. They met virtually.
They met virtually
over a Zoom, and everyone else could watch in on the
Yes.
denomination's YouTube channel and could listen to proceedings. But Reverend Steve DeVries, the pastor here,
one of the pastors here,
and in fact, it's a unique congregation with a unique ministry here in the Wyoming, Michigan area. A vibrant ministry in many ways, an Anglo-Hispanic, two different kind of congregations that meet here, that worship here, that share ministry.
Yep.
We mentioned Reverend Steve DeVries.
Yep.
The other minister is Reverend Jordanis Diaz. He is actually a Christian Reformed pastor from Cuba, the Christian Reformed Church in Cuba. Fascinating story. To listen to his story, he had to flee Cuba with his family because of religious persecution, because of the communist government there in Cuba. And to hear his story, his upbringing, his life is phenomenal. You give glory to God for his work, God's work in his life. And now he is helping to pastor here in this community with a Spanish-speaking congregation. So,
and there's a lot of collaboration, from what I understand, between both parts of that congregation, and a lot of people trying to learn Spanish, from what I understand.
Well, and Spanish is a wonderful, wonderful language.
Well, it's good. It's wonderful.
I took Spanish in high school and at Calvin College at the time, so I know un poquito, a little bit of Spanish, but it's good to keep up with it.
Yeah, ich studiere Deutsch.
That's right. That's okay. We're very complimenting of each other, Cedric. That's good. And by the way, it's outside. This is Michigan still, and it's the end of May. It's warm out, and yet it's snowing.
It is snowing.
This is crazy how it's snowing.
Oh, my
Cedric.
goodness.
I
hate this time of year. Winter in Michigan is wonderful.
That's right, because it kills off all the pollen.
Everything.
That's right. We have a lot of the cottonwood trees, especially in certain areas, are really letting off their pollen, their seeds, and it is floating. It parts. It looks like a snowstorm here at times. So I feel bad for you, Cedric. You're struggling with your allergies.
If you are coming to Synod, remember, bring your Allegra, or whatever it is that you use, because it is flowing in Grand Rapids.
Well, but Synod will still be in a couple of weeks.
So maybe
things
the Lord will
hopefully
be merciful.
temper down a little bit more. But different people met different places around the United States and Canada yesterday, and their homes, some which had cottonwood trees floating around, others which did not. And they met to, the main thing was to elect officers for Synod coming up, which again is very unique way to do it. In the past, they've always elected their officers when they have met in person, and it was always the first day, one of the first orders of business that Synod would have to do. This is actually in many ways a good thing to elect officers now, because this gives the officers who are elected last night, now a couple weeks to kind of collectively think through more the agenda, how things will go. I trust things will run more smoothly even than last year.
And in fact, that's why the Synod met this last evening, in part, was because we know this is going to be a heavy agenda again this year.
Here's the 600 pages, 600 wonderful pages.
And there's a supplement.
And that's not here yet. So that's right. The delegates will get the supplement. And there's a lot there.
Yeah, and so in order to save time, basically, which was a big concern, as we all know from last year, that in order to do, they had this meeting, and so this is really good.
I hear an ice cream truck coming, actually.
It's awesome.
I would love an ice cream right now. Cedric, you want to go get me something, and I'll just keep talking a little bit more on there. So, but, the wonderful thing about doing things online is you have to kind of figure things out with electronics and media, and there's always a little bit of testing to make sure the delegates figure out things, are able to vote appropriately. They always run a pre-test, and so their pre-test was which kind of dream house would yours. I was voting for the Swiss Family Robinson one. Which one were you voting for?
I was going for the Prince Edward Island farmhouse.
Yes.
Clearly, which won, thankfully.
It did, but it was a close run-up. Now, of course, we actually didn't vote. I voted in my head. You voted in your head.
Yeah.
I liked the Swiss Family Robinson. I thought that would be an amazing place to live. If you've ever been to Disney and climbed up in there and explored, I don't know why you wouldn't vote for the Swiss Family Robinson.
Until you get to the point of you being 36 years old and you start developing arthritis, and all of a sudden all those stairs.
36.
Hey, man.
That's right.
You gotta think long term.
Yeah, you should eat more fish oil, maybe.
And
vegetables. That's very good. Anyway, so they figured that out, and they went right to the voting then for the officers. So who was elected as officers? Chair or president, vice president, first clerk, second clerk.
Yes.
The president
is Derek Buikema,
and he was elected a very overwhelming vote, and I say overwhelming because he was elected on the very first ballot.
Very first, yeah.
There didn't have to be a runoff.
Which is not very typical.
No, it's not. No. It's not, which in many ways just goes to demonstrate that we saw Derek a couple of years ago, 2022, when he was vice president, and he did chair Synod for a little bit when they were talking about the human sexuality report, and the delegates then, and those who listen in listening, Derek, obviously going into it, said he will do really well as president and running Synod. Yes. So there's a lot of confidence. So that was encouraging to see right away on the first ballot him.
They liked how he ran the meeting, and they want to see more of that.
Yes, the vice president this time was Stephen Terpstra, and who's Canadian, by the way, a Canadian who serves an American congregation, but himself is Canadian and knows the church order very well, has been a synodical deputy, so is very familiar with the workings of the denomination. First clerk was Josh Christoffels. And again, someone to know him, I know the brother as well, and he knows church order.
Yes. He must sleep with the church order.
I think, well, this is thick enough to almost be a pillow. Some on there. Maybe a hard pillow, but a pillow nonetheless on there. So, and he does. And that gives you a lot of confidence, especially someone who's a clerk going into that. And then there's the second clerk position, Dan DeGraff. Dan actually went to an RCA seminary, Western Seminary in the Holland area, Holland, Michigan area. So that's just something unique. Again, we have relationship with the RCA historically going back, and so he kind of brings some of that relationship to the table as well as the second clerk. So these four brothers, knowing them, they love the Lord, very competent, very thoughtful individuals. They love God's word. They love the mission of the church, the gospel of Jesus Christ. So I'm very excited about their leadership as we head into Synod 2024.
Yes. And just to stress again, the fact that they have 2 weeks to prepare is big, because normally they'd be running around on the first day of Synod trying to get oriented and all that kind of stuff. And so this is much better. This is a much better approach.
Yes. So I don't know if there's anything more about that meeting last night you want to mention. If not, we'll just kind of springboard into Synod coming up, what we can anticipate.
No, the election of officers is the main focus.
Okay. So then Synod's actually going to meet in session. They have one more online session where the committees are going to meet just to introduce themselves.
Yes.
How are you? What's your background? Tell us about your family life. Where are you from? What's your favorite food?
What do you like to hunt?
Would you want to live in the Barbie dream house? That was also one of the, seems a little flimsy to me, by the way. Yeah. I didn't realize the Barbie dream house was in Wisconsin.
In Wisconsin.
I would not have, I would have thought like Malibu. Yeah. Something like that. I don't know where the Wisconsin thing came from. But anyway, that didn't go to the top.
Mattel's way of trying to market to some people, I think.
So yeah. But maybe someone lives in like a Barbie dream house. They'll find that out in the committee meetings when they are talking about things. But then they meet in session in person on Friday, June 14th. It's right away when they start the convocation, they start the worship, they start the formal proceedings there, the plenary session, and then they'll go from there. Eventually breaking out into committees. They have a full agenda.
Yes.
600, again, mentioned 600 pages, and that doesn't even include the supplement, which will be probably a couple hundred pages as well, but when it's all said and done. So what do we have to to anticipate in this upcoming synod?
Well, the big thing that everyone has been waiting with bated breath to talk about, I suppose, for the last year has been the gravamen issue.
Your bated breath, perhaps.
Okay, maybe I'm projecting a little bit.
That's right, because you've written quite a bit about it. You've thought about it. We've spoken about it many different times here. Yes. So, but I don't know if you want to say a little bit more about that.
Well, as many of the viewers might know, last year the conversation really didn't get very far to talk about gravamen, and so all those the overtures and the work of the committee that had worked on that very diligently and hard and in long hours into the night was sent forward to this synod, to Synod 24, to be discussed here. Now, all that information is going to go to an advisory committee, and they're going to have to talk about what they want to do with it. But nevertheless, that's going to be something that everyone is going to be waiting to see or at least I'm going to be waiting to see.
Exactly. And many others as well.
Yes. To see how that pans out, what the committee makes of all the work.
And kind of, again, how does that impact office bearers? How does that impact people who are on boards?
Yes.
The different denominational boards and committees, because that's an issue. I mean, to give governance to these committees, these boards, these different ministries of the denomination, which represent and carry out the work of the denomination, you would think that it would be good that all the members of the board also were in line and in full agreement with the mission of the church, which is laid out in our confessions,
exactly,
and our Reformed confessions. I mean, that's, again, 3 forms of unity. That's what unify us. It's not our, Dutch heritage, ethnic heritage. Again, this is a wonderful example of a church where there's different sort of heritages, different languages, and yet what unites them is the gospel of Jesus Christ, the Reformed identity.
Yes.
That's what we take going forward. And
specifically, I would say, the Reformed identity understood as a confessionally Reformed identity.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the things we didn't mention, talking about the changing of the Christian Reformed Church, is that all of the, many of the officers, all of them are at least 3 of them.
Three of them
are in their 30s.
Yeah, they're millennials.
They're millennials. The millennials are in charge.
So there's one Generation Xer and then a bunch of millennials on there. I know I'm a Generation Xer, millennial. We are a wonderful representation of it. But it is kind of, maybe you call it the changing of the guard.
Yeah.
That things, as in life, as in institutions, denominations, things do change because life continues on. Yeah. And so we do have, and in many ways, I think a rejuvenation of the calling of the ministry of the Christian Reformed Church, of our sense of identity. I'm encouraged by that in many ways the past couple of years. And this really springs us forward, I would say, towards a healthier, more vibrant sort of ministry, not only in the North American context, but more broadly.
And also more diverse. I think that's something that shouldn't be, this is, if you want the Christian Reformed Church to become a more diverse, not so Dutch, burn the wooden shoes, you're going to want to, this is the path. I mean, we have, one of the great things that's going to be happening at this synod is the Consejo Latino.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's one of the overtures.
Yeah, they have an overture that they would love to be able to present the work that they're doing to synod on a regular basis. And I think that's just a wonderful way of continuing to incorporate the diversity that comes around and centers around Jesus Christ as he's understood through our confessional tradition.
And it's that diversity that's really rooted in the gospel, in our Reformed identity, and in our confessions.
Right.
And that's what this is what unites us.
Yeah.
And so let's celebrate that. Let's continue to push that forward. Also too, the work of Christ's church. Yeah. So that is one of the things, also one of the overtures that is in this agenda. The delegates will be able to talk about and deal with. But there will also be some heavier things, some consequences also of the gravamen issue and the denomination's past synods deciding where we stand on human sexuality. That there are some congregations that have lodged communications of saying their churches in protest.
Yes. This was suggested to them by our brothers and sisters in the Better Together group.
Yeah, well, that was a suggestion, and some churches took that up actually in regards to our friends in the Better Together movement.
Yes.
And in many ways, I say, where do you find that in the church order?
You don't.
You do not find that in there. It is not there.
This is what we call grasping at straws.
They have made it up.
Yes.
They have made it up, and in many ways, many of them are actually kind of saying we don't agree with the confessions that we say we agree with, which doesn't work.
Right.
That does not work in a confessional
we want to be Christian
denomination.
Reformed on our own terms.
Yes. And again, that doesn't work in a confessional. No. There are many other options, of course. Many other wonderful denominations that would gladly take them. Yeah. I guess if they're like, we cannot be in good conscience confessional on this issue. And that, the Synod will be able to talk about that and discuss
in
that.
Particular, what does that look like? A lot of the press over the last couple of years has been focused on Kneeland Avenue, Christian Reformed Church in Classes Grand Rapids East, and no doubt they may return to the news in one form or another, but this year it's sort of broadening out. We've got a couple of overtures and an appeal, from what I understand, coming from Classes Grand Rapids East.
And there's a church specifically called out in one of the overtures, Eastern Avenue Christian Reformed Church, that a lesbian couple married in the eyes of the law, not in the eyes of the church, but has presented a child for baptism, and the church blessed that and blessed them, and so the question is, how does that work? Right. It doesn't in our confessional denomination.
And because the issues are twofold. One is, in order to go through that ceremony, you have to be a member in good standing.
Yes.
So there's a question of why are they really members in good standing? Mm-hmm. Has the church made a wise choice in that regard? And then secondly, they have to take vows that they will raise this child in the Christian faith as it's understood by the Christian Reformed Church. And can they really say that when they take those vows? Those are the issues that Synod's going to have to find a pastoral way to address.
And so there's going to take there'll be some hard decisions that'll need to be made. And we know life does have hard decisions. Yes. And so that's why it's important to be praying for Synod. In fact, we'll get to that, I know, just shortly in regards to the importance of that as we think about even the Abide Project. In fact, if you go to abideproject.org, right away at the first page, there is a call to prayer, different points of prayer points for Synod, where all these different individuals who head up the committees, who are reporters, the chair of the committees of Synod, of the different ones who work at Synod. The call is through Scripture, again, to pray for them, for God's people to be much in prayer. And that is something we need to be much in prayer about. Keep praying for the church, pray for Christ Church, the Christian Reformed Church, pray for the truth, and pray for sanctification in our own lives to continue to live into holiness and to following after the truth as well. Prayer against the evil one who would seek, he loves nothing more than to see the mission of the church derailed. So prayer. Part of that is, I talked about it, there are hard things to be done. Some of the overtures call into question delegates even, who are properly seated. There are some delegates that come from churches that are in open rebellion against the denomination and its denominational position. So what do you do? Right. In those situations? Can they, in good conscience, say, I promote and defend and I heartily believe the Reformed confessions?
Which is what they will be required to do on the first day of Synod when it meets in June, right? They're going to have to get together and they're going to have to publicly affirm the creeds and confessions of the Christian Reformed Church. And can they do that in good faith?
Yes.
That's the issue.
And so Synod will get a talk about that. So there's a lot of weightiness. We'll talk about money, by the way, too.
Oh, yes.
Money is always a light topic. Pensions, specifically pensions, like our pensions.
Exactly.
Because we're ministers. What might we change that and so there's an overture asking to look at pensions, for instance, and how we go about that. So this is a really full Synod.
It is.
And
I do have to say,
yes.
As a millennial, I find that very interesting that you're concerned about pensions. You're going to retire?
No, I'm not. I don't even know if Social Security is going to be there. I'm planning. I'm just going to work until Jesus comes, or maybe until I just can't work anymore.
Exactly.
So, but that's good because we get to do wonderful work.
It's an optimism of that Gen X coming out.
That's right. That's right. It's good to be optimistic and to be positive because there's a lot to be positive in the life of the church. Speaking of positivity, one of the things we also do want to mention is, speaking of the Abide Project and positivity, there is a convention coming up. We've had one for the past couple of years, and this upcoming, the end of July 30 to 31st, out in Iowa.
in Iowa.
First CRC Sioux Center.
That's right.
Is where there's going to be a convention for 2 days, all day Tuesday, pretty much all day Wednesday.
But it sounds like it's at Dordt University.
Well, some of it will be at Dordt University, and some of it will be at First CRC Sioux Center. On Tuesday night, Dr. Jeff Wyma from the seminary is going to be giving a talk. It's open to everybody. No fee for that. And he'll be giving the talk on the sanctity of sex, living a holy life in a sex-saturated society. And so that will be that Tuesday evening on July 30. That's an encouragement for anyone to come out and to listen to Dr. Wyma, some of his work, good work that's been done on that's blessed our denomination.
He's a very engaging speaker and preacher.
And so also with that, there's a slight fee otherwise to attend, but you get lodging at Dordt University. You get all your meals paid for. There you get good fellowship, you get some good teaching, good preaching, some good singing. It will be a wonderful time for and it's all in-house. I mean, we're all Christian Reformed pastors that lead that, and leaders who will be doing that.
We'll be leading it, yeah. But if you're on board with the Abide Project and you want to be together with fellow believers who share your convictions and your desire to see the Christian Reformed Church continue on this road of reformation, this is a great opportunity to just be encouraged. To know that you're not alone.
You're not alone.
Wanting the good of the denomination.
Yeah, and again, especially as it goes forward. One of the things I didn't mention in this report, 200 pages of the 600 is from the Council of Delegates, which I'm just finishing up my term on there.
So it's your fault.
So yes, it is. But Synod is also going to be talking about a global vision team. And as we think about more broadly the work of the church, what does the Christian Reformed Church more globally look like? And the delegates will get to talk about that. That's exciting to say, okay, let's talk about important issues like sexuality, like confessionalism. But now, how does that apply also to, and as we proclaim the gospel, as we live out the gospel, not only here in North America, but in many other places, in different continents of the world, and being Christian Reformed? What does that look like? This is an exciting time in the life of the Christian Reformed Church. We have challenges, but actually there's a lot of excitement as well. And I'm excited going forward as well, Cedric.
Yeah.
So, we're going to be able to visit together again when Synod meets. And so we're going to have some more updates, I know, coming forward. I'll look forward to spending some more time with you. Quality time. Hopefully the cottonwood will be out of the air by then for your sake.
Pray.
Yes, that's right. Prayer is good. Prayer is very important. So until then, we will visit together at that time.